Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Riding the Storm Out. You can follow us at @OutRiding. It is so good to have you with us. And as you can see, sitting to my left, my long-lost partner in crime has finally found his way back from the state of, were you in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania and Virginia. They threw me out of both of them.
Right?
Yeah,
but they served your time.
They threw me out.
Well, it's good to have you back. David and I actually did a few shows without you.
Well, that's why our ratings have been down.
Oh. Well, it's the day after election night. Of course, last night we were all anticipating, and quite frankly, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, no one even thought it would be any kind of a race. But last night was very encouraging, especially for those of us that are pushing strong states and states' rights to restore the union. If we can restore at least some of the republic, it's going to take strong states to do so. We saw a great night last night in Virginia.
Oh, we did.
How surprised were you?
To be honest with you, I'd been listening to a lot of reports and a lot of interviews, like 3 or 4 days before, and they were predicting about a 2-point win for Youngkin. Mm-hmm. But if you had asked me that same question 2 weeks ago, I would have said he doesn't have a prayer. I would have thought that Virginia is so overburdened with those swamp creatures from D.C. over in the suburban Arlington area, that I would have thought there's just no way. But when I was in Virginia 2 weeks ago, I got to tell you, Paul, when I was out in the rural part of the state traveling the highways, I was seeing Youngkin signs everywhere. So I think those folks finally just said, we've had enough. And the positive thing is it showed that the citizens can overpower the large cities if they want to, if they're mind to.
And that's what it's going to take. And we've got to recognize that it's not the government, that's supposed to rule over us. It's we, the people of the United States. It's supposed to be the people in the states. And we saw a great voice of the people being heralded in Virginia, not just the governor's race. No, but across the ticket with Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General as well.
Of course, that's all because of racist parents. That's what Joy Reid said. She said the reason that Youngkin won, it was all these racist parents. Now, those same racists went ahead and elected the first black woman to a statewide held office in their lieutenant governor, and then a Hispanic attorney general.
Well, see, that's
so they're so racist.
See, that's saying facts don't matter. It doesn't matter if you're actually black or actually Hispanic. No. It matters what you believe.
If you're progressive.
That's exactly right. You can actually be a representative of the black community and white if you trumpet the right company line. But if you're a black man or a black woman that happens to believe in fundamental Christianity,
well, then you're a racist.
Conservative, then you're a white supremacist.
Yeah, so when they say the word racist, it really has nothing to do with skin color. Yeah. It has everything to do with philosophy and party affiliation.
And haven't you loved the way that they now have a catchphrase that they all just go back to? It's always dog whistle. It's always a racist dog whistle, racist dog whistle. Tell you what, I'd like to slap them upside the face.
I'd like to take that dog whistle and, anyway.
Well, I was very excited to see, Virginia, because it's been, I think, 15 years since there's been they talk about it being a purple state, but it really isn't. It's a blue state. It has been for the last 15, or at least the northern part of it is a strongly blue state.
Yeah. Well, the large metropolitan areas, just like it is in all these other states.
Yeah. And they kind of course, the dog wags the tail in that situation. Sure. The cities, the major cities, Chicago rules state of Illinois. New York City rules the state of New York. But do you think that this was something that surprised the other side, or do you think that they were wise enough to see this coming?
Well, I don't know, Paul. If you listen to what they're saying that they just didn't get their message out. They're going to double down on stupid.
That's one of the things that really kind of amazes me, Dan, if you think about it. It makes me wonder, the little bit of the cynicism in me makes me wonder a little bit about the 2022 election. Because normally when you see a political pragmatist, a guy like Bill Clinton or somebody like that, that's the epitome of being a perfect politician. They will change their message based upon what the temperature of the people is.
Yeah, they're chameleons.
But what's amazing, exactly, that's a great way to describe it. What's amazing is the more buffoonery comes out of the White House, and the more stupid decisions they make, And the more down the tank they drive America, the more they double down rather than backing up. And I was amazed with this governor's race in Virginia that Democratic governor actually made that ridiculous. That's one of those things that he thinks, but for him to actually say that
right.
the children belong to the state.
Oh yeah, that the parents have no right in determining what their kids are taught.
Public,
well,
you
that's
would have
nuts.
thought he would have backed off of that.
No,
but
he doubled
down.
Yeah. Well, Nancy Pelosi was asked today if this changes anything in the House agenda. She said not one thing. And in fact, some have been saying that they just didn't stress their progressive message hard enough. So that means what they're saying is that we weren't socialist enough.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that they don't believe the people are smart enough or as smart as they are. And I guess they don't believe they're explaining their brilliant message clearly enough so that the dumb people can understand it. But what they don't understand is that the people don't want Marxism. They don't want socialism.
No. The one thing you got to hand them, they really do believe in what they believe in.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're willing to go down with the ship.
Not only are they wrong, but they're emphatically wrong.
Yeah. So here's the deal. If they're that dumb, I hope they remain that dumb.
Yeah.
Because I think what happened in Virginia, though that doesn't really affect a lot of us in Oklahoma, although it's going to send out ripples that will affect us in Oklahoma and other states. But I think what happened yesterday is going to happen more and more and more. I think people are beginning to realize we're going to take over our state. We're not going to allow these socialists to take it. And I think if a state like Virginia can do that, then there's a lot of other states. Look at New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I mean, New Jersey was a real horse race.
Yeah, and it wasn't even on the table being discussed a couple of weeks ago.
And of course, New Jersey, good grief. Mm-hmm. I mean, you typically don't think of New Jersey being the bastion of conservative thought.
When Chris Christie is your Republican champion.
That's exactly right.
Chris Christie doesn't make a good Democrat.
No, he does not. That's exactly right. No, he doesn't even make a great rhino. So, So I think yesterday was a good sign if we believe the states can regain their states.
And that's what great way of putting it. And that's really what it's going to be. Washington, D.C., I think we have all learned the way that the White House has doubled down on their message.
Yeah.
Rather than responding to the failed policies and recognizing, for example, how states are handling COVID.
Yeah.
Bill Maher on his, and I don't ever see his show, but I saw a clip of it the other day. I disagree with just about everything he says.
Oh, however, I thought you got your sermons from
exactly. That's right. Sermon.org.
Yeah, Bill Maher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's good.
But but he's sincerely wrong on most of his positions.
Yeah, but he's been right
sincere
on a few things.
Well, he believes in it too.
Yeah.
He's not just repeating something he heard someone else say. But he made the statement recently about comparing the blue states with the red states and how traveling through blue states he just hates because they're ridiculously restrictive.
They're nuts.
And he actually made the statement the other day, it's time for us to realize that COVID is, we've gotten this thing whipped. It's no longer a pandemic. Let's move on.
It's nuts. Yeah.
Well, what is it about, do you believe that there's any hope inside the Beltway of actually changing direction?
No. I do not. I think there's two reasons for that. I think one, the amount of money that's at stake, and everybody wants a piece of that money. And of course, a piece of all those trillions is still a lot of money. And the other thing is the power, the controls and the strings and the finagling that goes on. I mean, why is it that we can send someone to D.C. who we thought was solid, and they're bought within a few months?
And you can only name a handful of guys that you'd say are really, truly principled.
Yeah.
I mean, I've become a big fan. Now, he's very libertarian. I've become more libertarian. I love Rand Paul.
Sure. Oh,
and
yeah, of course.
There's been a handful that have been truly principled. But let me ask you this. Of course, this is an easy softball setup. If the answer is not going to come from inside the Beltway, where is the hope of restoring our republic, or at least those states that wish to remain free? Where does the hope?
Yeah, it's with the people in their own state. If you look at what the framers intended, and we've talked about this in many different venues and all over the country, but the framers, I don't think, at least as I read them, did not envision this one monolithic government governing, at that time, 13 states that were so diverse. Now, maybe there were some who did. There are some who argue that there was nefarious motivation in some of those guys. They wanted a huge central government. It certainly has turned out that way, but I just don't think that that's what we agreed to. I think if many of the states had known that they were signing into a suicide pact, they would have probably never been so eager. Like, for instance, Oklahoma in the early 1900s. We fell all over ourselves trying to get into the Union. But had the founding fathers of Oklahoma understood, now, once you sign this, it's a suicide pact, maybe they would have rethought it. Obviously, Texans thought it through, because in their agreement, they are still a republic. They can pull out anytime they choose to do so, or they can divide Texas into 5 states.
Well, what people don't know, Dan, and because we're not taught this in school anymore, is, we actually existed for 11 years as just 13 sovereign states.
Sure.
And they initially came together, declared independence as 13 independent states.
That's exactly
They
right.
immediately worked together for their common defense from this invading army from Great Britain.
That makes total sense.
They didn't even have a paper constitution. They basically worked on a gentleman's agreement for up until 1783, when the Articles of Confederation were ratified. I think 1783, 1781, when those were ratified. And then, of course, they came together under the supposed purpose of strengthening the Articles, and then they came up with the new Constitution in 1787. But we functioned for 11 years without having Washington, D.C. rule over us, and quite frankly, fought a successful war for independence and liberated ourselves from the strongest military at the time. So we did quite well functioning that way.
Sure.
So the idea of us needing to depend upon an imperial president or 9 attorneys that aren't even accountable to the people to issue 5-4 rulings rather than opinions. I don't know why we've gotten to the point where we think that that's the only way we can function.
Well, notice the progressives understand it properly. They ignore the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter what the Supreme Court passes. If they don't agree with it, they ignore it. Well, that's what was going on in America for decades. The Supreme Court represents one of 3 co-equal branches. We've been fed a whole line that is a total lie. And because most of us are red-blooded, patriotic Americans, we love this concept of America, I think, all the way to the slaughterhouse. I think we've gotten to the place where the scale is out of whack. If you look at Madison's original representation proportion, it was 1 representative in the U.S. House of Representatives for every 30,000 citizens.
Even that is a lot. 30,000 represented by 1.
That's a ton.
But now, what is it?
Well, today, it's about 1 for every 700 to 800,000. If we stuck with Madison's proportion, we'd have over 11,000 members in the U.S. House of Representatives. So the point is, it's too big. And I think people often ask me, Dan, if the framers could come back, what do you think would surprise them the most? And if you accept the technological breakthroughs, forget about all that, because obviously they'd be amazed by airplanes and automobiles. I think they would be most amazed that we're still trying to function as big as we are under this one monolithic government, because it's just completely out of scale. We have a good friend who always talks about a pitchfork and a table fork are the same, but you don't try to eat with a pitchfork. It does the same thing as a table fork, but it's way out of scale. And I just think it's time for us to scale things down, because this won't work having a 49-49, 50-50 split, wherever it is. Constantly we're trying to one-up one another. I mean,
and that's what it supposedly was originally. And that's what the big debate was in 1787. You had, the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Supposedly, of course, their names are kind of...
they're opposites.
Exactly. But, you had one side that wanted to concentrate more power. You had the other side that wanted to make sure and defend the states. They finally, supposedly, according to Federalist 45, came to an agreement. But there was always the fear that this new creation, this new federal government could grow until it became tyrannical. In fact, so much so, as we were talking about a little while ago, the states, even at that time, even those 4 big government, were so afraid of ratifying the Constitution as it originally was that they wouldn't ratify it until they amended it, drum roll please, 10 times. We call that the Bill of Rights. But ladies and gentlemen, think about it, how the hoops you have to jump through to amend the Constitution with a single amendment these days. They wouldn't ratify the Constitution until they had amended it 10 times. We call that the Bill of Rights, with 10 handcuffs, reminders of what Washington could never do under any circumstance. And then basically anything that they didn't delegate the power to Washington retained with the states should have been a very simple to understand deal. Now,
Yeah.
we'll talk about this in our next show, but obviously when you have all the power concentrated in Washington and one guy's making the decision, then he can lead the entire country down a path of destruction.
Yeah.
And that's the path we're going down right now. So
Yeah.
when we come back in our next episode, we can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some of the...
Yeah, what I'd like to talk about is how power in a fallen world tends to want to always consolidate itself into a fist. And the job and the fight is always to keep power decentralized. And every time you centralize power, it becomes a fist. And it's no coincidence that the sign of communists is a fist. So maybe we can start there.
As you said fist, it made me think of Joy Behar again. I just remember...
Well,
anyway,
me too. Well, and Joy Reid.
Yes, exactly. Folks, it's good to have you with us for another edition of Riding the Storm Out. It's good to have Dan back with us. We
Yeah,
thought we
it's
had
good to be
lost him.
back.
Actually, we took some...
You were hoping you
We
had
had some
lost
fun at your expense.
Oh, I have no doubt
We had
of that.
some videos of you having traffic accidents and things.
Oh, that's good.
Little boy riding a tricycle,
Yeah.
running into a tree,
That's
falling over.
really,
It
really
was-
nice.
It was,
Thank you.
Fun. Yeah, we had fun.
I feel a lot better.
We look forward to being with you next time. Thank you for joining us at Riding the Storm Out.